To begin with, I'm really interested in how the project came together, and especially the what was the seed of the idea for the sibling narrative, because I found that so incredibly moving.
Yeah, I mean, for me, these stories tend to start with an image, or that just sort of comes to me, and I had this idea of these these children whose minds have been put into these synthetic bodies, this sort of Peter Pan analogy, mostly as a way to explore, what is humanity, and does humanity deserve to survive, and who's more human than a child. They don't know how to pretend they're not afraid, they're bad liars, they're so present, and this idea that's where Wendy came from, and the question is, so she's in a synthetic body now, and is she still human, or is that a choice? And if it's a choice, then what's keeping her human? And so this idea that there's a love story that is not a romantic love story, but is her brother relationship, and that he's there to try to keep her human, and then all of the other, all of the bad, the immoral characters, the other adults, are there to make her go, well, if that's what being human is, I'd rather be something else.
So yeah, when I was younger and I watched the Alien films too young, I really connected with the Newt in the film. So yeah, it's a lovely way into the story.
I think so. It's but what you realize is it's not just Newt, right? Because Newt feels like an adult in a child's body, and Bill Paxton feels like a child in an adult's body, and it's the echo of those two that is where the series really was born.
Oh, wonderful! That's lovely. Yeah. So I'm also curious about why you've chosen a sheep to be experimented on. Was that a nod to Dolly the sheep, or do androids dream of electric sheep?
Oh, that's funny. I just, for whatever reason, I misheard. I thought they said always work with children and animals, right? And so I tend to always work with children and animals. You're talking about creatures being put into a lab. There's obviously going to be experimentation that's done. The sheep was just what I typed in that moment. What I liked about it, I mean, goats have a sort of like satanic presence in our stories. Sheep are just kind of daft, and move through the world in a kind of smelly but innocent kind of way. And I really liked the idea that we were gonna, much like Monty Python did with the rabbit, that we might take the sheep and make people look at sheep in a totally different way.
Noah has this uncanny ability, especially with the sheep, to take something that's so genteel and that you should take some comfort in, and then immediately challenge how long you really want to look at what transpires with this poor creature.
Well, I mean, when I made Legion, I talked a lot about the uncanny. And, Freud had this essay on the uncanny, and he said the things that really disturb people are when familiar things act in unfamiliar ways. It's why a haunted house is so disturbing, because your house isn't supposed to do that. And so that's the thing with the sheep. You take something as innocuous as a sheep, and you give it a different tone of voice, and now it's a different thing.
But then you took a tick and made it even worse than we could imagine.
I know. Well,
I kind of want to talk about the aesthetic or the mise-en-scene. So there's some great needle drops. So we've got Smashing Pumpkins, Cherub Rock. But then I was also getting, obviously, original Alien came out in the 70s. I was getting the kind of world of like a Vietnam War kind of vibe, just from people too young to go into war, going into those spaces. So like when you were thinking about the aesthetic and the world building, what kind of new things were you thinking about bringing to it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a question of authenticity. You want the TV audience to feel like they're watching the movie. And Ridley's movie is such a 70s movie, right? But both in its aesthetic, zoom lenses, and you know, and the sort of tone of voice, class war, all of it, and the Cameron's movie is such an 80s movie, right? But so part of the authenticity for me was the cinematic authenticity of feeling like, you know, we had those elements in place that make it feel like a 70s movie, which makes it feel like Alien. And so, yeah, all those elements of, I mean, I don't know that we referenced Vietnam specifically, but there is definitely a sense of distrust of individuals who are kind of powerless against this corporate engine.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.